So, we are back in the Impaler's catacombs. You will notice, however, that we are currently in a special game state. Or rather, I'm not actually playing Elden Ring right now. I am watching a recording of myself playing Elden Ring. And this is because, unfortunately, my microphone did not actually pick up any audio the first time through. This means, therefore, I get to look at what I did and tell you what it was. Right now, I am saying specifically that we are looking at the Weeping Peninsula, finding that the Impaler's Catacomb is part of a greater sort of map, what is it called? Map tableau, wherein we see that the entrance to the Weeping Peninsula is shaped like a hand, specifically a hand with severed fingers. The thumb, right there, with the Impaler's Catacomb on it, implying the Impaler was an important person that was cut off. The pointer finger, which has a certain, what is her name? Irina. You have the ring finger here, pointing towards the demi-human ruins, who we know has an analog to Rennala, and then we have the pinky finger that points upwards towards the rest of the lands between, and indicates a certain important character as on the mind of whoever this fingered setup is actually keeping track of and interested in. Because it seems to be from a certain person's perspective. This is a very meta area. It's not just looking at things and trying to describe them in in-world terms, but rather we're seeing a gaze into the psyche of a certain character. We'll also notice that to the left, the middle finger has been cut off, and that oh yeah, and here's Castle Morn. It's also included in the pointer finger. We'll notice to the left we have a tower that has Godric's men gathered around it. And this indicates a particular person who was cut off in a similar fashion to the Impaler. If you've played the games before, you might have a guess as to who that is. Say, based on the identity of the Impaler. Perhaps someone happens to be incredibly similar to him, historically. To the point where some people would call them twins. Now, if you look at this place here, we'll notice that you have a very interesting sort of position that the Impaler's Catacombs are situated on, where there is a nice big old tower to the lower quadrant of this elevated position here. That is an important area to the Carians in particular, and this is something that we have to take into mind when interpreting the area and what it's trying to get at, because it's not just giving us information about things and how they're related to the person who the hand is sort of generally intended to be perceived from the perspective of, but also it's a sort of microcosm of the lands between. And here I'm showing you how you might interpret the upper area there, who it's pointing to. If you just look at the shapes of the land, it'll sort of indicate exactly what is going on here. Especially if you know things that happen later in the game. Now, if we go down... Oh yes, also I mentioned the fact that this is a Carian-related area because of a certain Blide, and that will be something that is very important, probably because of the fact that the person who's being pointed to by that pinky finger up towards the north is related to, but not the same as, Rennala. I had a better explanation for exactly why that is in the initial attempt at recording this, but regardless, we can see this area down here we have explored most of, but there is an area very down to the south that I haven't actually reached yet that has an astrolabe. We're going to visit that. But before that, we will go and visit the people called the Star Callers. This is important because of the proximity of the Star Callers to the rise, which is Eridus' rise. That's meant to be very emphatically a Carian-related structure, and if we looked at the map, we saw that to the north of that, there is a gravity magic-related set of enemies here. This area is a sort of gray and mottled, impact-strewn area that is just to the north of that Carian-related area, which in turn has the has the Impaler's Catacombs just further to the north. So if you know the DLC, you will be aware that there is a structure just to the south of where the Impaler happens to be that fits the sort of general description of gravity-related thing that is highly linked to the Carians by proximity of a Carian-based structure there. Look at the map of the DLC, you'll be able to actually see what's going on. Now here, after we dispatch this wolf that's just about to sneak up on us, we'll be able to look into the Carians' interests in stars and see what it actually indicates here. See, these starlight shards are obtained by absorbing some sort of remnants of the stars, as will be explained in the item description in just a moment. But there's a directionality of this there's a directionality to the astrolabe that actually matters here in the interpretation of what's going on. Starlight shards, an ephemeral sliver that gives off pale blue glows, just like spirits. And if you'll notice beyond the pale blue stuff that it actually mentions, you'll also find it has a nice pale grayish sheen surrounding it, a sort of fog or a mist that'll remind us of a couple of other items with something very similar going on here in the base game. We will find more of those in the DLC, as well as quite possibly in a couple of other items here in the base game. But these prized items were once used in the Eternal Cities as an ingredient to intoxicating drafts. That will come up later in the game. But right now, let's just look at the comparison. Let's think of the fact that starlight means spirits. Spirits specifically of dead stars. The Ghost Glovewort deals with the dead. It calls in spirits, and you see that sheen of quote-unquote spirituality, residual matter beyond the residual matter, surrounding those bells. And Trina's Lily is associated with sleep. Sleep is associated with death. It is the little death. So there's a very deathly sort of element to the Starlight Shards, which probably has to do with the same intoxicating drafts to some extent. See, if you drink enough, you'll get into a deep slumber where you'll sort of lose track of things, and you'll lose control of yourself, which might just have to do with what is going on here. We'll think about that for a little bit into the future. Sorry about my stumbling over myself. It's hard to remember exactly what I was saying previously. I'm trying to pace this as well as possible, but yeah. So, passing flash of starlight. That's essentially emphasizing the mortality of the ancient life of the stars, but the fact that you have spiritual remnants that can be collected by people via these sorts of astrolabes. And if we look very carefully, we'll see the astrolabe is specifically facing in a certain direction. I'm going to take a moment to properly orient myself just to make sure that we're actually getting the correct angle. But the interests that are being oriented towards via the astrolabe will be very clear once we actually look at the map and trace out the path. So, just give me a second to adjust here. We will see that Eridus' rise as astrolabe is looking towards the area directly between Earthbore Cave and the demi-human ruins. That is probably actually pretty important, since the demi-human ruins and Earthbore Cave are related to the Carians, and we see that it is by the Church of Pilgrimage, which we'll visit later in this video. But zooming on further, we find even further. The coastal cave is in sight. This is important because Bach is a character that is relevant here. But what it's actually looking towards is this: the prophetic precipice of anticipation. Anticipating what? Anticipating our character arriving. That is something that the Carians are quite interested in. They have an eye on when that prophecy will be fulfilled. And we know it's a prophecy because it's the chapel and precipice of anticipation. They're anticipating something. Someone's arrival has been foretold. That someone is us. And the rise, we will remind, actually has a window facing directly in that direction already. It's keeping an eye on Stormvale and the Chapel of Anticipation. Now here, you'll notice again that we're going to be hunting for birds. These birds are not being wantonly slaughtered, but I'm trying to get a rare drop from them, which is going to be relevant later on in this video. That rare drop, I will just spoil things by saying it's not going to be acquired, but I can tell you what it is. It is the four-toed fowlfoot, which tells us very important lore that 4 toes are considered good fortune, 3 toes are considered ominous and unlucky. This obviously relates to the fact that we have a 3-fingered hand at the mouth of the Weeping Peninsula, but also it will become much more relevant once we see what's going on in the village further in. After taking a moment to rest here at this site of grace, we will be able to level up. This will be a mistake because we wanted to actually see Melina level us up later today. But nope, we don't have enough runes at the time, so well. We're going to look into this area, see what we're going to be able to go to in the future. Just sort of mapping out how things would go. We have 1 path, 2 paths. That one is the one we're eventually going to take. We're going to explore it just a little bit now, get a sort of scope on it to make sure that it's actually just a singular path here. And while it is the case that you have multiple different directions you can sort of explore once you go over there, it is a single route for the most part, which we can see going directly up those foothills and along the wall. As we turn back over this way, we're going to be able to see that we can just head back down the middle, or we can actually rise up to the plateau, the raised area that has that Carian building over there, that has the gravity magic impact-related site to its north, and the Impaler's Catacombs further in. We are going to test this hypothesis because we didn't actually confirm it by looking at the map. We'll be able to go over this way, climb up towards those star colors, and then we will head back down. But we will write this off as actually only being one direction. See, the storm jumping pad, the spirit spring. This is linking spirits and storms, by the way. That's actually very thematically important. But we will notice that this will actually bring us... Oh yeah, by the way, you can see 4 different divine towers there, which is pretty interesting. We will notice that... Oh yeah, and they're also juxtaposed with the Erd tree, so that's like essentially showing a 5-fingered hand. You have the thumb, and then you have 4 smaller fingers circling to the side. Anyway, the Spirit Spring is a more direct route where we are able to go over to Eridus' Rise. But these T-posing people show that it is the same way in. Up here, we reach the same destination, which is the Impaler's Catacombs. And we clearly are signposted that it's going to be there by the funny little dragon turtle man. The statue of... No, not Charo. That's not correct. Whatever that gravekeeper's name is. Anyway, we learned that this is the same path, so we'll count it as 1, 2, 3 that we've seen so far, because we have the ability to go to Castle Morn. There's a 4th to return back up to Irina. And then we have the ability to head over to the west using this bridge. And we'll eventually go north, but we are first going to head around to the left. Right now, I'm just analyzing the 5 different ways that we're able to go. A sort of unmutilated hand that we can see juxtaposed with the 3-fingered hand at the top. But anyway, that being said, we'll just have to see what is awaiting us in the area to the left in a little bit. We can see a little bit of a hint on the map if we're looking very carefully. You can see some rubble gathered around the walls there. Not talking about the ruins from on high, but maybe some impact sites that could have been created by the falling of those ruins. More to the point, though, we're going to be looking at the wall. And you will notice here, 5 trees growing to block our way. Auspicious and similar to the 5 paths that we just saw. I'm going to look at this relief, and I'll eventually drop a glowstone, but I won't be able to tell very much about what is going on at all. It looks sort of like a tree with 2 storms that are on either side of it, but we really can't get much out of that, all things considered. So it's a bit of a waste of time right now, a waste of resources, but oh well. You won't know what you will find before you look. So we might as well get through this, just see what's there. It sort of actually reminds a little bit of the Tree of Life motif in general, but it would be a very derived and weird version of that motif if so. Usually there's something accompanying it, like, say, griffins on either side, or lions or something. But not here. You just see this Sky Temple ruin right here, and some strange marking that we can't really make out the details of because it is so weathered. And it makes sense, because it's the Weeping Peninsula. What else is going to happen other than the stone being eroded? Also, my microphone might be peaking a little bit. Hopefully that's not really too much of an issue. Also, sorry if my peeling off the mask is a little bit weird here. Unfortunately, this is a special fun episode because madness has struck me like a curse. Going through this place of frenzy has left us in a situation where frenzy has afflicted us. We got bitten by rats and had to, I don't know, cope with the consequences of that. You'll find out exactly what I'm talking about in just a little bit. So, we'll climb up here. Notice how many Roa fruit are in the area, by the way. That's going to be very important. There are Roa fruit strewn throughout this area. Earthly flowers as well, but in lesser numbers and of less importance. I'm going to mess around with a boar, trying to impale it for some reason. Just because it's there, and I have bad experience with boars randomly attacking me. Sometimes they'll just run off like that, but sometimes they'll be sort of jerks, and it'll make it my problem. It's weird how that happens. Anyway, continuing on over here, there's basically nothing, and I'm sort of climbing my way up to see the consequences of some sort of breach. A major problem for the local people because castle walls are meant to protect stuff. You can't just always run when you have a place to defend. But no, oh, the horror. We have a breach in the defenses that would allow us to actually sneak down, use those ruins for cover, and if those bats weren't there to waylay us, potentially escape the golem's notice and just reach Castle Morn without problems. If nothing else, we could make a run for it over towards the beach, which we'll eventually find is to the right of Castle Morn. Right now, obviously, the golem cannot see me. I have not gone out into the open. I am safe. But since we have found that breach, we're going to be sort of heading mostly to the left. We're actually going to return to the path here for just a little bit. Note that there are skulls on the ground and that there is a stake of America up ahead. That will be important. This is an area that we know, therefore will be dangerous. But rather than heading in there directly, we're going to continue on to the left. We're going to go along the castle walls and see what might be hidden nearer the edge of the cliffs here. I think I might be inspecting for further breaks, or maybe some sort of indication of why exactly that break is there in the first place. Notice, huge amount of unaffected Roa. That is something very much worth noting. Bats continue to haunt this area. It's a slight bit of annoyance. It'll waste a bit of my time, but not something that's really too terribly much in the way of concern. Fortunately, the bats here still haven't actually been increased in fortitude, so they are easy to take out, even if you do so accidentally. There have been some very silly times where we've had one of the bats swooping towards us, and because we have one of those swords just planted in the air, they will impale themselves on them because they're being little dummies, and they don't think of trying to use evasive maneuvers. Now, here we will see a shiny orange item. This item, you'll notice, doesn't have the normal dropped item icon. You can see the actual shape of this yellow ember on the ground. It wants you to pay close attention and to realize exactly how many of these embers there are. Yellow ember. An ember taken from the eye socket of a corpse. So this is marking that there's someone dead here. Material used for crafting items, a sign that the deceased suffered from the flame of frenzy. This grape has ripened and burst. Grapes are associated with eyes. Keep that in mind, this will be very important later. But also, notice that from the pupil of the eye is emerging still little smoldering bits of flame, and that from this flame there is emerging further smoky red and purple sort of like edge fires. It's not just a yellow ember that is remaining. It's got gloam, and it's got a deep sort of crimson that feels like blood is being invoked. So you've got a weird sort of situation where gold, blood, and death are being invoked at the same time, or simply people associated with these. There's a sort of thematic resonance that's going on. We gotta keep track of who might be associated with those and why you've got the sort of indication that there might be a problem associated with them or the breakdown of their connections. Here we'll see the first victim of this disease. We didn't pick up on any wildlife so far. This man had flaming eyes. Not just embers, but actual gouts of fire were shooting out actively there, and he was sort of on the ground in pain. But he got up when he saw that I was there. This yellow ember indicates that he had a fallen friend that he was remaining beside at some point, but they're gone now, and he didn't move from his place, either due to mourning or due to the pain that he was experiencing. Hear that cheeping? That's the sound of danger. But before we confront that danger, we will look to the road. We'll see what actually was directly available for us to find. Because it's important that we keep track of all of the information here. We're trying to piece together exactly what's going on in this sort of place of frenzy. So, a reminder, there's a breach in the wall right here by the path, and we are going to a road. I'm probably going to cut out. No. I mean, I don't know. I can just leave that section there. Mushroom by the wall. Ooh, praise the mushroom. But other than that little diversion, there's really not anything of interest there. Just noting the fact that the wall itself is pretty secure until you get really close to the path that leads out of the village of infected people, which is a problem, because that castle has some problems itself right now. Sicknesses are really not good in a siege, for one. And we'll find that that is the least of the concerns. We're beginning to see some fleeing animals here. I'm trying to keep track of them, but they are elusive. They're trying to draw me in, trying to make it to where I'm endangering myself by opening myself up. See, they don't like to confront you unless they have strength in numbers, or unless you get so close that they actually have their fight or flight system fully triggered and they don't think they can escape without attacking. You'll notice that was a rat that had the same burning orange and yellow and red eyes. The same flame of frenzy was seated in their eye sockets. The sockets of animals, of rats. Rats, if you'll remember correctly, if you happen to have played Dark Souls, you'll know rats are a symbol of humanity. These ones are very clever, and they're ambushing us and trying to spread their little plague. Just like the rats in Dark Souls spread poison to you by biting you and inflicting way too much damage if you catch the status effect, so that you will die with almost no recourse if you don't have a poison cure. These ones have a different status effect. A status effect that is a disease rather than a poison. Although you could say it's a sort of societal poison, as the madness that they seek to inflict upon you is something that will be very dangerous if it can spread. Here we will actually decide to loot this thing, and we'll start to see some interesting comparisons. This is an eye of yellow. If we will look very carefully, this thing appears to be a branch which has several berries. Several berries that are leaking something. This is a roa fruit. It comes from bushes, berry-like red fruits. A shrub fruit bursting with ripened pulp. Grown in the lands afflicted by frenzy, it is used for its pain-relieving properties, though it's also known to have horrible dangerous effects as an intoxicant. So if we looked at the roa fruit, we would note that it is also found specifically in bushes. It is the bush fruit, the shrub fruit, bursting with ripened pulp in the case of the Eye of Yellow. So Eye of Yellow, see, red fruit that grows in shrubs. Eye of Yellow is not actually itself a species. It is roa fruit in this roa abundant area that has been infected with frenzy. How it got that, we can't be 100% sure immediately, but it probably has something to do with the fact that there are environmental changes that occur when you have a sickness spreading around. A sickness that happens to have carriers that are human and animal means that you can have lots of chances for that sickness to survive through some sort of byproducts of the animals. And we will see some of those shortly. There's another rat. Turns around to face me, doesn't react fast enough. Oh no, poor rat. This one thought it could ambush me. It had allies there. If we had gone straight through, there would have been 3 of these frenzy rats of incredible intelligence that wanted to maliciously infect us and cause us to deal with madness. Just like the rats seek to infest with poison in Dark Souls. You'll notice Eyes of Yellow are still in areas where there's lots of roa fruit around. Not all of the roa fruit are actually weeping the pulp. Not all of them have lost their branches' leaves. There are still many bushes that look completely healthy, but they're already sick. Eyes of Yellow are very similar to yellow embers. They're bleeding, they're shriveled, they're oozing because of the fact that the sickness has reached critical mass within them. Not being eyes, but being closer to literal grapes. The roa fruit don't catch on fire when they're infested. They just end up rotting on the vine, so to speak. And become addictive, dangerous, possibly even contributing to the issue of the spread of frenzy, especially when they've gone undetected. Notice that, roa fruit, Eye of Yellow, roa fruit. And here is some evidence. Gold-tinged excrement. Usually when we find that, there are bears around. But where are the bears? Well, there aren't any in this area. Unfortunately, we just have the rats to find. And you know what that means? That means if you find piles of gold-tinged excrement, it means you find something that has feasted on a significant amount of runes or a significant amount of, I don't know, people that are themselves invested with those runes. In this case, either those people were already infested with frenzy, or it's the case that the poop is gold-tinged but not obviously infected, simply because of the fact that the rats do not immediately cause symptoms to appear in people unless they reach a critical mass. It's just like if you've been exposed to something like a person with the flu. They can sneeze in your direction and you can actually catch the disease and become a carrier that is non-symptomatic. Until it either builds up in you until the point where you are dealing with some burning flame inside your body, so to speak, causing you to heat up and be threatened with death, or until it passes. That doesn't mean that in the meantime you can't actually infect people with your, well, your breath, your contact, all of the different components that can have infection contained within them. It's not easy to make sure that there's no possibility of spreading, but it is easy to have contact with people outside your immediate area who don't know that you're sick, who don't know that you're infected, I mean, or who simply don't care, who are willing to take a risk. And when there is contact, you have another possible vector of infection. See, we know there are people who are dying of this sickness here. And we know it's even on the periphery, the edge where these misbegotten will gather. One of those misbegotten was laid out. We don't know if they're actually afflicted with frenzy or are even capable of it. Obviously, they're not showing their eyes on fire. But these are winged creatures. They're able to go where normally people can't. Even if the walls were entirely intact, they would still be able to come over here. And so we have a real concern. These birds, or I should say, birdmen, present a legitimate vector of potential infestation of Castle Morn itself, because that's where the misbegotten have been living. Castle Morn has been keeping them as slaves, and while it's not necessarily the case that they were definitely free enough to actually end up coming over here before all of this fracas went down at Castle Morn, it's entirely possible. And that could mean that Castle Morn itself was infected with this frenzy disease. And if that's true, then we can't necessarily say that the people of Castle Morn are in a good position at all. They could be doing horrible things as they sort of lose their mind, since this seems to be a bit of a problem. With the rats biting you and producing madness while infected with the frenzy flame, it is clearly the case that that is going to be causing some major social problems in the court of Irina's home. We don't know exactly what's going on there, but if the servants, quote-unquote, are infected, they can infect the masters, even if it's the case that they're non-symptomatic themselves. And those masters, if they become mad, can do some tormented, terrible things to them. Maybe things that would be out of their character normally. Oh yeah, this is very important. Let's break off that thought and consider the fact that this is a Church of America. This is a place that was dedicated to the religion of the land, to the normal order of things, and it's now infested with rats. This supposed sacred space has become a host of frenzy carriers, of animals that will spread the disease by biting people. They've been placed into that sacred space, and being very intelligent animals, I'm sure there's a reason that they've actually gathered there. There must be some sort of allowance for them, or some sort of encouragement even. These rats are making it into a populated area, and are not seeing opposition, most likely, considering the fact that they have the run of the place. They're not even just hanging out around the periphery. And now we can look into the town. This place is burning people to death. This is a bad sign, if it wasn't obvious. Let's very carefully approach this rat-infested place, and we can see there are lots and lots of people staring towards the fire, or up towards the heavens, observing what is going on in this burning, and burning themselves on the inside. You can see some of them don't have the fire that's leaking between their fingers, but some of them do. And it's probably burning their hands as they're clawing at their faces. And they just are in so much pain that it's not something they want to avoid. This is a flame-crested wooden shield. This item will give us some context on this local area. A tall, medium-sized wooden shield, light for its size and easy to handle. Carried by soldiers of the village that is afflicted by frenzy. The yellow flame is a symbol of affliction, serving as a warning to those who might approach the village. This is a symbol that will be recognizable in the land, or else it wouldn't be useful to put on the shield. People know what this frenzy flame is. People know that it's a sickness to stay away from. And this person, inside of the shack there, that person was probably a guard, and was stripped naked and the shield deposited upon them. This indicates that there's some sort of aberrant thinking, some sort of hatred towards the prospect of being contained here. This is a quarantine zone, and the sick are burning people who are wanting to stay true to their faith, who are wearing the manacles of the Erdtree commoner, displaying the fact that they still have loyalty to the norm, that they desire to have a proper continuation of their time in the land as proper citizens. But the rest of these people... Oh yeah, also you'll notice that they've been stripped bare, and this person who actually still has the Erdtree cuffs on, which we can't really see the design on, but it has the Erdtree, has been positioned so that he's directly in line with the Erdtree being seen in the clearing of these trees here. It's a sort of burning the Erdtree motif. Sort of funny there. Person is being burned. They want to burn the tree. The frenzy is consuming these people who have devoted themselves to faith, and if we'll look very carefully at these others here, they've taken off their placard. They've removed their symbol of the tree from their position, or from its position on their necks, and instead seem to be embracing flame. Frenzy flame. They've been infected. Their madness is causing them to feel reverence towards it. Why this is a little bit strange. Why would people feel devotion towards a disease? And you'll notice they have a big mother rat right over there. It's a very interesting sort of juxtaposition with Marika in particular, as she is a sort of mother of demigods. She's a very important sort of figure specifically for her motherly aspects. Not just as a queen, but a queen mother. And here we're going to be counting them out. You see 1, 2 rats over there, and 3 more there. 3 children for the Rat Queen, and 2 others. So that's 5 children that are gathered around this America stand-in, this giant rat who's sort of glaring towards the statue of America. And we've got to think, who are those children? Are they supposed to be reflective of America's actual children? Similar to, say, the situation in the Impaler's Catacomb, where it appeared that we had America being represented by the tree watchdog, and then 4 children directly under her. This may indicate exactly the timing of certain things. Or it could be the case that it's saying 4 children are left after the Impaler has departed. After all, it was quite noticeable that he was missing from the catacombs. And this is a sacred tier. We'll keep this in mind. This sacred tier is still at the foot of America. Despite the fact that this place, this Kalu Baptist Church, where people apparently are being callously baptized in the frenzy flame by rat bite, people go there to be infected, probably, or are led there so that they could be afflicted. Because the rats are there for a reason. They're being presented as a worshipful sort of icon of this frenzy flame. We'll remind ourselves about the 3-fingered hand there that is at the very mouth of this microcosm of the lands between. That's important because if we look at the item, the flame of frenzy is associated with a maddening 3 fingers, some sort of entity that is granting spells, miracles in Dark Souls terms. So it's some sort of eldritch entity or god causing yellow flame of frenzy to burst forth from people's eyes, and the range is increased with the charging of the spell. The flame of frenzy deals damage and causes a buildup of madness just like the bites of the rats. This incantation also causes buildup of madness in the caster, however, and is only effective against quote-unquote tarnished. But we have to remember something very important here. While we are a cast of tarnished, while we are specifically people that have had the gold stripped from them and have been removed from the lands between, specifically from implication with Kale's conversations to protect us from the madness that is spreading across this land, presumably because of the maddening 3 fingers, since they seem to be, based on all indications here, responsible for a lot of the problems in the Sweeping Peninsula. If they actually had a foothold in Castle Morn, if they, if they are causing a situation where this place is ejecting Irina and presenting her for sacrifice, because she's being put in that position specifically, staged for sacrifice, because they knew that this sort of outbreak from the castle would happen. There was a foreknowledge that someone would be coming out of the castle, and they're choosing specifically to ensure that she is sacrificed, apparently, probably to the 3 fingers. So Godfrey is possibly colluding with this 3 fingers entity. The entire land is mired in madness, and it's supposed to only affect the tarnished. But these people were Erdtree commoners, so that means we are forced to reconsider what tarnished actually means. The tarnished that we know are specifically the people who had their gold removed from them. But As we can see with this weathered straight sword with short but wide blades, simple to wield, it was known as the sword of the people. Though the Erd-tree stylings are visible, time has not been kind to this sword. It is now merely a shadow of its former self, just like the people of the land are shadows of their former self. And why is that? Because their gold has been shattered with the shattering of the Elden Ring. The entire place has become vulnerable to madness, to the flames of frenzy rising up and threatening to burn the Erd-tree down because of the fact that the Elden Ring was shattered. And this was something that probably Marika knew would actually happen from the beginning. So we have to ask certain questions. Why would this be true? Why would Marika make herself vulnerable like this? Or the entire land vulnerable, so to speak? After all, it's not like Marika has aligned herself to the Three Fingers, most likely. She herself was a god. She had dominion in this land. The Three Fingers seem like they're sort of an outside force, since, well, at the very least, Godric's forces are coming from the outside into the Weeping Peninsula and threatening things in conjunction with the Three Fingers plot, possibly even supplying the frenzy to begin with. We'll see if those frenzy rats have some way of actually being traced down, since they're the most likely initial vector of the frenzy arriving in this village, I think. At the very least, since they're biting people and causing madness to spread, and there's the fact that these rats are probably fertilizing the Roa with their madness-tinged gold, causing eyes of Yellow to sprout as a result. It means the rats are most likely the initial carriers that will have had to have come here. And that, in turn, means we've got to really, really consider how they could have gotten in. So it's either Godric is purposefully bringing them here, allowing the madness to spread, the disease to consume people, or it's the case that we have a real sticky wicket on our hands. And he just coordinated to ensure that the madness that was already spreading would give a proper sacrifice for some sort of ambition on his part. Some sort of deal that he must have made with the Three Fingers in order to make this work out. Again, circling back though, why would Marika choose to do the shattering? There has to be some sort of overriding reason that has led her to risk such a thing, knowing that it will cause madness in the population. Knowing that she'll have to bring us the secret weapons from outside of the Lands Between that are protected from the shattering of the Elden Ring back into the fold. This is not going to be easy to puzzle out. It's probably something we'll have to figure out well into the future. But we're prepared to look and see what's going on. And now, we've done basically all that we can in this area. So it's time to seek out the path to the bridge. The bridge that will lead us on to the area that looks like it must probably be representing the area surrounding the Erd-tree. That area which has it on the map, the minor Erd-tree in question, since this is supposed to be some sort of area that's designed to teach us about what's going on in the Lands Between in general. We have to assume that it's the case that the one minor Erd-tree here is actually intended to be representative of the Erd-tree itself. So maybe there's going to be some sort of clues as to why the shattering occurred over there. But regardless, we're going to be heading in that direction to see what else we can find about the Weeping Peninsula before we actually investigate Castle Morn itself. And sorry if I just wander around really awkwardly here. I'm gonna have to be looking very carefully along the cliffs to try to find a way not to get myself killed. But this is approximately the right area, because that is the proper bridge. And this is the way. Ow! But it's not too terrible of a drop comparatively. This is going to be the third time I meet up with this bridge guardian. Just about enough. And reminder, demi-humans like glass shards. Glass shards remind of rainbow stones. Rainbow stones are supposed to have been fun toys for children, but they're also something that is very important to understand are related to the ruin fragments. So, if they seem to be very similar, it's probably the case that there's some sort of connection going on. The glass shards might be useless, but the demi-humans might be remembering something to do with the glass shards. Something about their ancient past, because they seem to have roots here. They seem to be remembering some period where they weren't all just living in caves. They had some sort of civilization that they were a part of. Here, though, we meet a new type of enemy. A spear wielder with a tree on their back, or something along those lines. This is a very strange little enemy here. Has some fancy clothes, has a nice spear. But this one we're not going to investigate too terribly much. Should have investigated the first one, but here's the second, and this is very important. Notice this spear looks like a tree that has been tilted to the side at an angle. A tree that is being embraced by another tree that is wrapping around with roots that are digging into the main tree's stem. And that is an image that you should all recognize, because if you actually have at all seen the cover of the DLC, you'll recognize that's an image of the Skadu tree, whatever the heck that is. Why are these people that are planting themselves in such a way that they look like they're growing a tree from themselves? I mean, that they look like they're growing from the ground, and that the tree is what they are. Why are these people representing the Skadu tree? What's going on there? We'll just have to keep that in mind. It probably has something to do with just what the Skadu tree is and what these people are. It implies that there's some sort of more ancient character to them, if you understand that these people seem to be very much connected to the Erd tree, and DLC is called Shadow of the Erd tree, and the Skadu means shadow. Well, we might think that these guys are connected to the Shadow of the Erd tree DLC in some way, but their loyalty is to the Erd tree. What is going on here with this gold and crimson and tinged green situation? Oh yeah, their hands are obviously wood. The wood is the same character as the tree growing from their back as well. It's almost as if their entire body is actually made of wood. So, keep that in mind. Their hands, the tree, and their outfit have sort of dark purple, red, green, and you see gold as the indication that they are aligned with the Golden Order on their hands and or their arms in the form of bracers, and their legs in the form of what are those called? Not just shin guards. There's a specific term for that. Van braces, I think. So that's the route up to the minor Erd tree. We're going to go down this way to explore this area first. It seems like there might be some interesting stuff here. And we want to go off the beaten path to find everything that we can, rather than just pursuing things directly, because that has been our plan for the entire game. We don't just go straight to Stormvale. Now, we'll remember that downstairs from here, there was a basin, and that basin had the crystal tier faith knot thingy. That is very important. It was juxtaposed not only to the Erd tree over there, and therefore to America, but also to the Shield of the Guilty that was just to the right in the demi-human ruins, or the area directly below them. The area directly below a place that is associated directly with the Lucari Academy, because the demi-human queen is associated with Queen Nala, who is at the Rhea Lucari Academy, reigning as queen. So, we are seeing hints that we should be associating poison and maybe some fancy white light with the big tree up there. And if that wasn't enough, we will find a Trina's Lily right in this area. It's telling us to carefully look at the environment and think through what is being presented. This Trina's Lily is right in an area that was being looked at by the other Trina's Lily back on the mainland, where we could see this set of Miranda flowers. But here, we notice that those Miranda flowers are directly in line with the minor Erd tree on the Weeping Peninsula. Since that is a microcosm of the Erd tree itself, this is telling us that the Erd tree is connected directly to someone who is symbolized by Miranda, and that means there's some sort of poison in that person's nature. And you know what? We know not only is the Erd tree also directly in line with this minor Erd tree, but it's also the case that America is very much associated with the Erd tree itself. So, America is being associated with poison here. Why is she associated with poison? What could she have done that would give her that sort of characteristic? But also, a reminder, it's not just poison, it's flowers and white light. Light is very important because it's associated with time. She's supposed to be America the Eternal, at the very least. So that gives a sort of time feeling, and we know it's associated with time because of Dark Souls 3 and the fact that we see a flash of white light before time shenanigans go down in its final DLC. But there are numerous other ways to link white light with time throughout FromSoft catalog. It's just always used for that purpose. There's a spirit there. I won't be actually checking out what the spirit says in this video. I forgot to do so. But here, this is a church that is actually being pilgrimaged to by Erd Tree nobles, and this man is not America. He's a statue, represented with a statue, that is very similar to the one that we saw just a moment ago. Was a statue of America, even in a place that is so corrupted by an eldritch horror of some sort, that is the Three Fingers. Still, the statue is just right there, and it had sacred tears. And if we approach this one, we will note This person cries the same sacred tears. How could that be? This is something truly remarkable. We must be thinking here that there is some sort of connection between the two of them. And by the way, this person is directly standing in front of the Erd tree. We can see it angled behind him. And he's also in the pose of a cross. He's T-posing like those star callers, but also in specifically a way to where it looks like he would be a cross from which Merica hangs, because Merica is in a crucifixion pose in her statues. He is in the shape of a traditional crucifix. So that's weird. There's some sort of tension there. But we must remember, Jesus in real life is associated with the crucifix. The device that is used to torture and kill is associated with the godly figure that is the victim of the crucifixion. So, keep that in mind. He also has a lattice that he's being connected to. Now that's interesting insofar as vines grow on lattices. It's very similar to a situation with trees, but this ordering of things, this grid that he's imposing on himself, maybe in association with the Golden Order, since he has gold all over him in his little armbands, in his rope, on his hair, in his crown. This guy's really associated with gold. Maybe Golden Order based on the fact that he has a grid right there. And grids are used to define space. We'll have to think about that guy and just exactly what's going on there later. This is a very important inscription here. It has a figure, a hooded figure that is carrying some sort of device. It's not exactly clear what that is right now. Unfortunately, these are all too weathered to really make out. I won't spoil exactly what they actually are supposed to look like, but if you got clear quality for these images, well, it'll explain some things to you. Some interesting symbolism is there. This guy here, he's not supposed to be right outside an Urge Tree temple or church. What's up with that? That's some sort of deathly fellow. I'm pretty sure that the Golden Order doesn't like those who live in death. So why are they here? Almost as if this is a place that doesn't do Erd Tree burial. Like this building was taken over and then renovated to have Golden Order accoutrements going on. And as if to symbolize that, we have a person that has also been crucified here. And blood grease is at their feet. This person also seemingly was set on fire. They are a burned crucifixion victim. There's an irony of seeing that right after seeing the pyre of Erd Tree believers in the maddened village. The Golden Order has some interesting sort of similarities to what's going on there. Almost as if the ailing village is mocking them. But regardless, we find just outside this place something that is very relevant. A gilded iron shield. This guy himself is gilded. He's covered in gold. It's not covering his body like the statues of Merica, which seemed like she has gold painted everywhere. But this small metal round shield, heavier than a wooden shield, but boasting higher damage negation, is also, you'll be able to see some red and green on there, just like the tree that's on the back of that Urge Tree, Scadu Tree guy. The gold leaf is peeling off, and the effect is slight. It still boosts holy damage negation. This is important. Gold is associated with holy damage negation and protection from holy damage. That's an interesting situation going on, since we can know that arcane is what's normally protecting against holy damage. This guy, his body looks like it's silver and he's draped with gold. But it's worth noting that he's also being associated with an iron shield. An iron shield that has been gilded. So we can say that this man is possibly meant to be interpreted as a man of iron that has gold plated onto it. Or onto him. And he also has this shield associated with him that better describes what's going on to Marika's statues. Marika's statues have gold leaf that is flaking off of them, but his gold is entirely intact. It is completely proper, and we just see it on the crown, on his hair, on his golden lattice, on his armbands, and on his belt. Everything is perfect. We can now see the sacred tear that we never actually investigated properly the first time. Blessing of the Erd Tree, worshipped in churches all across the land, but it is a faint vestige. The Erd Tree is fading. The Erd Tree is now an illusion, so it's a vestige of its former self. Increases the potency of sacred flasks' restorative effects, however. So the illusion still has power. During the age of the Erd Tree, this means the age of the Erd Tree is now done, by the way, that's very important. These tears were used to spread the faith, for theirs was once a certain blessing. Once a certain blessing, no longer. The Erd Tree is no longer offering these blessings. But that man is crying sacred tears. And we're drinking them up in our flasks. What's up with that?
Spoken echoes of Queen Marika linger here as well. Shall I share them with you?
I'm very interested.
In Marika's own words, then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
So this is a weird sort of situation. I'm going to try to level up. I won't be able to because of the fact that I'm out of runes. Thank you anyway, Melina. But this weird situation here is that we have heard the first half of this speech before, and it was done at a different location. The third church of Marika.
Shall I turn your runes to strength? Let my hand rest upon you. For but a moment, share them with me. Your thoughts, your ambitions, the
My
principles you would follow.
ambition is to know exactly what is going on here. I want to learn and grow in knowledge and wisdom. Sadly, I don't have enough grist for the mill right now. Right now, though, we get to contemplate who this man is, who's placed in a church where the words of Marika are being spoken, with golden flowers at his feet, framed by the Erd Tree. He is in a situation where he's sort of replaced Marika, or at the very least, that he is made equivalent to her. So either he was there when this vanishing occurred, or there is some very important thing that is associated with him that is being reflected by the fact that he is at this location. But Marika's words were delivered earlier, probably at that church. Why are the echoes continuing here? Why is this man associated so keenly with Marika? With the Erd Tree? With the religion? The church? Who could he be? How could he be crying the same tears? I am very curious as to what exactly is going on here. It's all enough to make your head spin. And to get some vertigo. So this is the Church of Pilgrimage. The pilgrimage to see this man. To understand what he has going on. To find out why he cries those sacred tears. Opposite the Erd Tree. Between that Erd Tree and the minor Erd Tree. But we must also remember one very important thing. This area we were pointed to from the Church of Dragon Communion earlier. A wise turtle, a beast with great advice, has told us that there is something down here. That there's a path that will lead us to something of great interest. That will tell us something incredibly important. And so, we'll be treading down there. We'll be finding out what is being said, and we will keep in mind that it is juxtaposed with the introduction of that man. Let's go. Leap of faith. Here we've got funny little bats. These bats are associated with the ruins that make up the bones of this world. That we can see clearly here are the foundation upon which everything else is built up. And where it crumbles, the foundation itself is revealed, such as at the edge of cliffs here. This itself is incredibly interesting. Those bats are associated with these world builders, these terraformers. And we'll have to keep that in mind for the future. Why bats? Why man-eating bats that feast upon the crucified? And why do these pillars remind of the divine towers? Oh, a land octopus. One of those sacred creatures that we found was very important as we headed down towards the high road. What are they doing here? This is the second place where they're inexplicably up high, right on the edge of the map. Amongst these ancient ruins. Oh dear. Yet more bats. 3 more of them, it would seem. 3 is an ominous number, but there were 4. And 4 is a little bit more good luck. It's also associated with death, as these man-eaters most certainly are themselves as well. So what's going on here? Why are they... Oh, they seem to have been searching for slivers of meat. Ha 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 ha. I don't think that's it. We see right here, pointing between our places of arrival, the Chapel of Anticipation, and the stranded graveyard, bewitching branches. An item we have never seen before, save in the gift menu at the beginning of our journey. Let's find out together what exactly those are. These beautiful looking branches that must have come from some sort of sacred tree. Bewitching branches are tree branches blessed with an incantation of unalloyed gold. That means gold not corrupted by influences which bond it to other ideals. Gold which has had everything stripped away, leaving it brittle, soft, and malleable. Pierce a foe. Oh. Well, I didn't give myself enough time to actually speak that through. One moment. I'll cheat and manipulate time just a bit. Tree branches blessed with an incantation of unalloyed gold pierce a foe using FP to turn them into a temporary ally. The Empyrean Mikola is loved by many people. Indeed, he has learned well how to compel such affections. Bewitching branches, pointing towards the point that we fulfilled prophecy by arriving in the lands between, and pointing towards our immediate goal at Stormvale Castle. Bewitching branches juxtaposed to this church of pilgrimage, with this mysterious figure who seems to have traits very similar to Melina. Oh, sorry, to Marika. And yet, who seems to be quite distinct in appearance. And his posture is quite uncannily different as well. He seems like he could be associated with those star collars. With silver beyond just gold. After all, he's clad. And he's also possibly associated with iron. So, unalloyed gold and gold plating. Curious. I'm also reminded of the description of this funny rapier I have here. For though I do not have the right to return over that way, I do have the right to contemplate. This little thing looks like a sewing needle. And this sewing needle has been daubed with gold from tip to tail. It, too, is gilded, and presumably a different sort of metal underneath. We see its handle, at the very least, has a sort of silvery or pearlescent sheen. Oh, and there's the mother. Stranded far away, on distant shores. By another church, it would look like. In the ruined landscape at the edge. Near water. Near a vision of the ocean. Oh, but all this thinking, it's a hard task, and I am one with mind that needs to be expanded. What good is it to find these things out if my memory cannot be layered up and improved? So I shall use the grace I am offered to build myself up and enhance my mind. For that, I think, will allow me to better comprehend and figure out all of these riddles. As we continue on and seek out the answers behind the shattering of the Elden Ring, and seek our way to the throne of Elden Lord. But until then, until next we speak, I must bid you farewell. I'm not as tired as I might be, but as you can hear, I am a little bit yawny. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.